Howdy. Welcome. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jerome Greener. It is my honor and privilege to be hosting and MC the panel for Passion into Action. I'm joined up here on stage with two folks I just met out in the lobby. We kind of bumped into each other. The first being my friend on the right, Miss Tamara Colbert. She's a full-time mom, a full-time PR entrepreneur, and a full-time defender of Texas as co-founder of Grassroots Gold. I'm also joined up here on stage by my other friend, Mr. Paul Hodson, who's a full-time dad, a full-time defense contractor, and a full-time watchman of liberty here in Texas as the other co-founder of Grassroots Gold. How about a round of applause for my panelists? Well, we've just spent the last 3 days. Actually, you know what? Let me pause right there. I want to take a second to do this because I'd be remiss if I didn't. This time last year is actually when we did really, in fact, bump into each other in the halls of the Capitol, and it's because of two friends of ours that are sitting here in the audience right now, yes. Jim and Robin Lennon. Thank you so much for putting on that event at the Capitol, because this would not have happened, this partnership where we're all in the fight to keep Texas Texan. That was, y'all are the genesis. So how about a round of applause for our friend Jim and Robin Lennon?
I just need to say Jim and Robin Lennon have literally united so many people in the state of Texas. They are a true living example of their continued work, and we just love to call them friend and love to support everything that you're doing.
And I just want to throw back at you that I'm looking at the new political climate in Texas sitting right there with you and all the people that have joined you and will join you behind you.
Thanks, Robin.
Well, how about this? I gave the Cliff Note version of why y'all are sitting up here. I'd actually love to hear a little bit more from each of y'all individually about why you're sitting up here.
Well, I'm sitting up here because I'm the granddaughter of Captain Miles Standish. So I know something about liberty. It's in my blood as an American, but I didn't always know that. When I found that out in 2008, a gentleman named Barack Obama won the White House. And it was very important to me at that time. I had 3 boys. One was going into the service, twins who were 2. And my husband and I, the night that he was elected president, we knelt at our twins' bedside and said, from this day forward, the Colbert family will never be silent on liberty ever again. We are all in forever for the rest of our lives. And that was when citizenship became important to me.
Well, first of all, Jerome, if you'd actually, and this is for anybody, if you see us wandering in a hallway and ask us to come speak and you don't know us, the odds are really high we'll do it anyway. So if that had happened, that would have happened. My real baptism into activism was when the Convention of States project popped up in Texas, and one of the big sponsors here for this policy orientation. And I literally said, you know what, I can do that little thing, which is send an email and make a phone call. I'll do that. Then I met this lady early on, who was the state director at the time, and I thought, thank God I don't have to work with her all the time. However, she hoodwinked me into this partnership in liberty, in which we've found a great collaborative process, which I think we've kind of brought out in everything we try and do. First when we were working with Convention of States, and then as we stood up Grassroots Gold, building that from scratch and trying to figure out, we've built some collaborative relationships with great leaders like Jim and Robin, and with our friends at Fredericksburg Tea Party, Matt and Angela there, True Texas Project. We reached out to all them as leaders, and then we went to the RPT website and we found every county chair's email, every SREC member's email, and that was our list. It was about 350. That's what we started with, but it was spread across the entire state, and these were people who were active. And from that, it's grown. It's not very big, but our point is the collaboration is with folks like Jim and Robin, who then propagate that to their folks. And the Army's already there, the battalions are already there, we're just trying to coordinate all of them.
Well, your humility is kicking into overdrive right now because y'all didn't mention the awesome, huge, tremendous shout out that Governor Abbott gave to y'all for all of the pieces of legislation in 2021 that have your identity fingerprints on it. So hear me when I say this, y'all. These folks know how to pass legislation, hence the title of this panel, Passion into Action. So we just spent the last, yes, please, how about that?
I just have to say, because again, the credit should not go to us. The credit always goes to the men and women who show up at the Capitol, who show up in their district for their town hall meetings with their legislators. They are the real heroes, and we've just been fortunate enough that God has found favor on us that we get to stand in the gap for each and every one of them. And this last year, there were 2,500, 2,600 people that we collaborated with and encouraged to join us at the Capitol. And what happened as a result of that is grassroots organizations leaving their egos at the door because we didn't want their people per se. You don't have to join what we're doing. We want you to do what you do best right where you're at, because that's where you're most effective. And so what happened with that is meeting amazing people and connecting on a whole liberty scale, because at the end of the day, liberty loves company.
I'm going to jump in here because we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Jerome and TPPF in part of that collaboration. We've got to introduce so many hundreds and hundreds of grassroots individuals and group leaders to TPPF, and I know we've got some friends here today who've come, this is their first time with TPPF, and there's like, the resources here are amazing. It's like, tap into them. That's what they're here for. They are the experts on policy and messaging, and this is the best resource in the entire country is right here in Austin. And we are the ambassadors for those folks all across the state. So take that message back to you everywhere, every corner of Texas when you're out there.
All of those are fancy words for Paul and Tamara saying, Jerome, can y'all do this? I'll say, yeah. Let me go see.
That is a
fact.
Let me go see. That is a fact. And he was willing. Here, this is what's really important. There is hour in power, right? It isn't the beginning of the Constitution. The three words are we the people, not we the government or me, myself, and I. And what was brilliant is Texas Public Policy Foundation gets that. And working with Jerome, we kind of entered on a grand experiment in 2021 at legislative session to see if we could truly prove that the unification and the unity of grassroots could work by giving policy and legislation legs. The only way to do that is by showing up. You have to show up.
Which is a perfect segue to my very first question. We've just spent the last 3 days investing all of our time and resources and energy into identifying some of the biggest challenges facing our beloved state of Texas, right? Then we also talked about some of those solutions, right? We got K through 12 education problems, and our solution is more parental empowerment. We've got onerous taxation problems. Our solution is to get rid of those taxes. It's pretty simple, right? We've got this draining of the swamp problem, and our solution is to eliminate taxpayer-funded lobbying. I actually saw several lawmakers in the audience the past couple of days, so our job's kind of done, right? They've got the message, they've heard our solutions, our research data analysis, so we can kind of wipe our hands and go home now? Is that?
That is incorrect. I wish I had a red button right now. I would have a big no and a check mark. Here's what is awesome. So here's why policy orientation works. We have friends with us today that have never been to a policy orientation, but they are the Southwest Freedom Flyers pushing back in the commercial airline industry against vaccine mandates. Thank you guys for joining us. And so here's how policy orientation works. They don't know anybody. They're moms and dads. They're pilots, flight attendants, just want to do their job, love their passengers. So we invited them here, and guess what? They actually have one of their pilots who actually wrote a Medical Freedom Act in his spare time, flying and then focusing on legislation. So guess what? We get to put that in the hands of the policymakers. Can you evaluate this? Can you connect us with legislators? We did get it in the hands of Bob Hall. Yes.
And Brooke Rollins.
And Brooke Rollins. So The point is, this is a tremendous meeting of the minds. And imagine if the 500, 600 people that are here go home and touch 10 people. Now we have real power in what we're doing.
Let me circle back to the first thing Jerome said, because he pointed out the legislators here think their job is done. The good news is the legislators who are here at policy orientation, they don't think that way.
Right.
They know what's going on. So we love, again, Senator Hall, Senator Hughes has been here, Representative Harrison has been here. I'm not sure if we've seen some other folks. I'm sure some folks have come in and out. Oh, yes. Senator
She's
Colbert
awesome.
was here. Actually, was sitting right next to her.
Yes.
Why did I forget? Those folks know what's going on, but the news for all of you is there is no better time than right now to talk to those people who are running for office. Anybody realize there's an election coming up, like in 50 days or 45 days or whenever that is? Right, March 1st? Your state, every person who's going to be in that Capitol building as a legislator is on the ballot this time because of redistricting. Every one of them is running. You get a chance to meet them in district and ask them questions and to promote the policies and the legislation you want to see promoted. Don't let them off the hook. Let them know that you're interested right now. You actually get legislation. You make it inevitable by all the work we do starting right now.
That's perfect, because I want to talk about 2021. Heartbeat bill, banning critical race theory, fixing our grid, election integrity, conservative budget, codifying that into law, constitutional carry. The list of successes and even young ladies sports, right? The list of successes go on and on and on. But prior to the period of that sentence I just said, that was a lot of turbulation in 2021. There was times we did not know we were going to get some of these monumental pieces of legislation passed. I would love to hear a little bit more from both of y'all about one or two of those particular pieces of legislation. What went into that so that when we go forward and folks see a couple of setbacks, that doesn't mean the end of the road.
Can I frame that first? Because it was a really interesting session. You mentioned energy. We didn't even know that was going to be a priority until Snowmageddon hit, right? And so that interrupted the session, and we're shifting gears. That's a great thing about Grassroots is, okay, let's shift gears. This is a high priority now. We got people dying in Texas. We got to get this fixed. And then just the Capitol itself with DPS all over the place because of COVID and other concerns. It was a weird place to start the session. Now, by the time we were in the middle of the session, regular session, it was cooking. There were a lot of grassroots there for some of the key pieces like election integrity. I'll let Tamara now focus on maybe any one of those key pieces and what went on.
Well, I think what was really important with election integrity is it was really the unifying moment for multiple grassroots groups. And it was it was early on in the session. We brought dozens of grassroots groups and launched what we did called a series of Capitol collabs or Capitol collaboration events. And so coming to that event, learning who your legislator is, having materials you can go drop off. Thank you, Texas Public Policy Foundation, for that great research in their one-sheets. Sign up so that you get access to all of those. And so bringing those folks, and I'd say we, in our anecdotal polling, probably 60% of the people that showed up at the Capitol had never, ever been to the Capitol here in Texas before. And then multiple people kept coming back, and we were at the Capitol 14 times in 140 days. Each with one of those sessions bringing people, teaching them how to work with their legislators. And it was extraordinary. We got a chance to work with groups like Concerned Women for America and Eagle Forum and Texas Values and True Texas Project, Kingwood Tea Party, Fredericksburg Tea Party, the Hispanic coalitions in the south of Texas. Really, people and groups that had never before come together to work in a unified way on a single piece of legislation.
While working full-time and raising your family.
That's right.
Yes, there's that. Not a lot of sleep, but it's all good.
And what's great is, as Tamara mentioned, we were here 14 times, but the grassroots, they kept coming back whether we come or not is actually irrelevant. And right, the whole point is you get them here once, and trust me, they all say, when are we doing this again? When can I come back? And one of the things you say is, you can come back anytime you want. I don't have to be here. This is your building, right? You can come anytime you wish. And thank God for Fredericksburg Tea Party, because they are kind of the anchor point for us here in Austin. They're so close. They're here multiple times a week, and they always have folks on the ground to help. Praises to Matt and Angela for leading that group.
And one of the things that we do is, if you sign up with Grassroots Gold, we always try to post on our website when those various groups are coming. So that if you're just one person and you have a day off of work, or you were looking to show up at the Capitol, you'd be able to connect with other groups because you'll know who's going to be there. And that was also a really big component. I also want to say constitutional carry, and that it was a battle. It was not a given. And Rachel Malone, leading Gun Owners of America, I just have to publicly acknowledge what a tremendous job she did. What a tremendous example she was. And we've known Rachel for a long time. And then suddenly here she is, and boom, she's in the thick of the fight. And just the way that she encouraged her people, we spent a lot of time bringing people to support that as well, and training people how do you provide testimony, and working with those legislators. And it just is a joy. And suddenly you realize you're part of one big liberty fabric, and each of us is a thread within that fabric. And by being an active member of that fabric, it actually strengthens us as individuals, our state, and our country.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to pull on that thread a little bit, because I do want to go in and provide a whole bunch of context about being active and engaged in the Capitol, because y'all both talked about it, but I think it's worth repeating. When folks come to the Capitol and you register your position for, against the bill, you come to the Capitol, you meet with lawmakers, you lobby, you literally encourage them to support a bill. For the most part, and we've been around the state talking to folks, and we actually do a straw poll at these events, and we ask them how many folks have done that. How many folks have testified in the Texas House and Senate for something you're passionate about? And it's very, very, very few hands that go up. And it's not their fault. There's this myth out there that in order to testify, in order to go ahead and write an opinion editorial, share your story in an article, you've got to be a politico, you got to be a lobbyist, you got to be an ex-lawmaker, you got to be a policy expert. And nothing could be further from the truth. And I know y'all have heard this example plenty of times, but I'm going to say it again because I think it does really provide the illustration here. 2009, when President Obama and Speaker Pelosi went around the country, they didn't talk about the facts and figures of Obamacare. They didn't provide analysis and research. Remember, Speaker Pelosi, you have to pass it to know what's in it. What they did is they told a story. The story that they frequently said was Miss Eileen in Georgia is going to have to decide whether she wants to put medication on her table or food. Every single individual in this room has a personal story, and I would encourage you to share it, because when you do, especially when you marry that story up with the policy expertise that TPPF can provide, that's the type of ammunition that gives lawmakers like Senator Hall, Senator Colbert, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, all of those folks that are champions of our causes, they need that ammunition to say not just the facts and figures make sense, but the story from Ms. Tamara Colbert or Mr. Paul Hodson or whoever your name is. That's the reason why we need to do this. That component, if y'all want to add something on it, I would love to turn it over to you, but that component, we can never have too much of it. So when you come to the Capitol, it could be just a presence in the gallery, that does matter, but if you're testifying, if you're meeting with lawmakers,
Right.
all of that stuff can and should happen.
Yes.
So, Jerome, you really touched upon a point in which kind of the initial question you asked, how do we get involved? Everyone gets involved in politics as soon as it becomes personal. Again, our Southwest Freedom Flyers here, right? It suddenly got personal, right? You guys got involved. It's like, all right, this is hold the line now, or take ground back. Obviously, parents who have their kids in schools, it got real personal in the last couple of years, right? And you realized, oh my goodness, I can't believe that's going on in our schools, and we're going to get involved in school board races. So it becomes personal, and you're right. Texas Public Policy Foundation is going to give you like 3 talking points, right? You're testifying for 2 or 3 minutes. You're going to flesh that out. How did this affect me? because that's what the lawmakers are going to listen to. And that was a lesson we learned early on, and we didn't do well. I'm going to admit, we did not do well our first swim through the legislature. But that's something you learn. It's like they need to hear stories and have it personal.
And I'm not going to fib. It is scary the first time you go to the Capitol because it's a big building. You know, you don't know where everything is. And the map for the Capitol is not that good. So we have been to the Capitol probably thousands of times in 8 years that we've been doing this. And we sometimes get lost even now. But here's what happens. When you show up at the Capitol, we always say it's like Christmas Day. Because over and over again, that day we showed up, it just so happened we were able to meet that legislator at that moment. I want to share a quick story. There was one time at the Capitol during the it was the early heartbeat bill in 2019, and Lois Kolkhorst was getting hammered by the opposition. That day, and it was a tough day, just one of those days, and we're all walking out, and we're just like, wow, did we make a difference today? We happened to run into Lois Kolkhorst, Senator Kolkhorst, on the steps as we're leaving, and she's coming back at the end of the day into her office. And she just said, thank you for what you're doing. Would you guys just keep me in your prayers? We stopped right there on the steps of our Capitol and prayed over her. That is a miraculous and amazing opportunity to connect with a legislator that most people won't do and won't have. But the powerful moment of we're just people. She doesn't know us. But, you know, we're all trying to create great policy and to pass legislation that is going to protect our families, our home, our state, and really try to keep tyranny at bay. Those moments do not happen if you're a keyboard warrior. And there has to be a dose of reality. For me, I didn't understand it until I started coming to the Capitol. So 1 day, 4 days, 1 day at the Capitol makes a huge difference. And if you guys want to sign up at Grassroots Gold, our goal in 2022 is to create a powerful network so that for 2023, we are going to make our legislation inevitable because of the work and the ground game we're going to do in 2022.
So let me add to that. The genesis of our name is, and this will give you some insight into some of the collaboration we do, is pre-COVID, our thought was, and we were going to attack taxpayer-funded lobbying. That was our number one issue we were going to go after. And we thought the only way you're going to beat that in that building is if we have more numbers than they do, because the lobbyists are there all the time, right? So our thought was, and I said to Tam, let's do 100 people a day there for 140 days, 14,000. Sounds crazy, but if you think of like the Republican convention here in Texas, it's close to that number. People will go to like San Antonio or Houston for 3 days in that sweltering, humid heat in the summer. It's like, and all we were gonna do was just come once, right? Because we could do that. Now COVID changed that, but 14K was, well, that's 14 karat gold, and we thought, the people are gold, right? Citizens are gold, and that's kind of where the name came from. Like, it's not red or blue, it's about you. The other piece is, we get it, not everyone can come. That's a sacrifice to make. But the people who do come, you're amplifying all those phone calls and emails, and if you're in a group that's doing petitions, you amplify their voice immensely, almost infinitely. If you've got 5 constituents coming from El Paso, right? That's a 3-day trip, basically. A trip to come here, the next day when you actually need to be here, and the trip back. Those legislators listen, and they go, you know what? All those emails and phone calls I got in El Paso from my folks in district, those mean something because 5 of them decided to come here and testify.
And if there's one thing that we want to make sure we get across, it's really easy. There's a map, M-A-P, it's about the map. And that is the mission, action, or alignment, and people. And so everything that we do kind of works with a map because it really is about the mission, and that mission is whatever legislation, whatever our goal is with the grassroots. And then the action. You have got to have action. That is really, really imperative. And there was one legislator when we first started 8 years ago, and I was a little bit assertive, not gonna fib on that. And he said to me in the hallway, man, I'm gonna work and pass your legislation so I never have to see you again. That is awesome. I wear that.
Little did he know,
I
that's
wear
just an
that.
invitation for more.
But here's the beautiful thing. That legislator, we didn't give up. We were relentless, omnipresent. We kept showing up, but here, we kept showing up with a smile on our face. Hey there, how you doing? We're back. And pretty soon, then there's the next session. Well, then there's the off part of the session. We're showing up in his office. Are you gonna vote for us? Are you gonna support us? We need you as a sponsor. And year after year. And we ended up passing legislation in 2 sessions, which for those of you who don't understand how session works, Texas is made to never pass legislation. That is the goal of the Texas legislature, to never get it done. And so to pass something in 2 sessions was extraordinary. And I will say that Governor Patrick sat us down in his office and said, do y'all know what you did? And we said, we passed legislation.
Now what did we do?
Now what did we do? But he said, you guys passed legislation in 2 sessions, and you did that because the people showed up. And they showed up in their district, and they showed up at the Capitol. And they were nice, and they were educated, and they were relentless in their pursuit of that mission. And we've been able to work with him ever since and help him, and he's helped us. And so all that being said is your map. What is your map for your organization or as a mom? Your map might be running for school board. It's about the mission, action, alignment, and people. And that's really what great policy and passing great policy is all about.
Yeah, so you can use even another word for the acronym in A, right? The attitude, and Tamara touched on that, right? And one of the challenges we have is, right, am I an insurgent or am I an influencer? And the answer to that is yes. and if you look at folks over a period of time, if they end up in one camp or the other, either individuals or groups, they start to just become noise because they're always the same. You have to, and it takes experience, and it's really people skills, is what do I need to do to either push a button or encourage a legislator, right, or an elected official? And you're kind of moving in between there all the time. It's a lot of fun. We talk about it being Christmas. It's a joy to work in doing this. It's not just fun, right? It's actual joy when you're working with people who are working so hard. All of you who work in grassroots groups, you know how hard your folks are working, and the volunteers. It's, we met the 2 ladies who are, we call them the fisherman ladies, right? If you don't, Bonnie and Megan, and we had dinner with them last night. Their story's amazing. They are tireless, right? Working in Massachusetts, pushing back against, the man, basically, with almost no help there, and that's the spirit that is still alive. We touched on that Wednesday. The American spirit. The American Marxists don't have any idea how to infiltrate that. They can't figure that piece out.
Yep. I want to take a quick second here to plug that we've got plenty of time reserved for questions here in just a few moments. So please make sure, I see the wood burning in a lot of folks' brains. If you need to write it down, I want to make sure we're getting y'all all the specific information we can. Both of y'all touched on the interim, which we're in right now, right? We don't have a session going on. And Paul, you even talked about we're in the political season with X amount of days before the March primary. What else, is there anything else, can we be doing now, or do we need to start hitting the ground running in January of 2023 in order to actually have the best chance at eliminating taxpayer-funded lobbying, transforming our education, and making sure we finally lower the onerous tax burdens that we have going on in the state of Texas?
So I want to ask the audience, how many of you understand what taxpayer-funded lobbying it really is? right?
About half.
So about half. So what that is, and when we say we want to ban taxpayer-funded lobbying, that is because the lobbyists working in your cities, they actually are being paid to work against you.
With your
With
money.
your money. With your money. But we will never take our money out of the hands of those lobbyists until all the people rise up in unison and work together, starting in our cities, to push back. And when that happens, fear is good. Isn't that the Navy SEALs thing? Fear is good. Fear is awesome. And do you know what that is? The number one thing that legislators and corrupt people fear is you. Absolutely. The mom that stands up at the school board and says, enough. Right? All of this. The mom that says, my daughter was attacked in a bathroom by a boy who pretended to be a girl that day. Fear. And until our politicians get back to having a healthy fear of us, we will never stop tyranny.
So let me apply the map a little bit on that idea of what do we do all of 2022? What do you mean make it inevitable? How do we just sit back and wait? Do we pray? By the way, pray. That's okay.
Yes,
That's
pray.
a good thing. But prayer with action. And I don't have the exact quote from Frederick Douglass, but we looked it up, and that's like, I prayed every day for freedom, but it didn't become real until I used my legs, right? Which was really fascinating. We saw that. It's like, man, that's
us.
That
Yeah.
applies to a lot of things. There's going to be so many opportunities, again, to start cultivating those relationships, the people part. During this year, we have the election cycle in March. Most municipalities are going to go right into an election cycle for May, right? For city council, school board, a lot of those. Maybe some bond issues will come up. Opportunities there. So again, you're going to be interacting with, and the local officials, Tamara's right, that's the key to ending taxpayer-funded lobbying. If we get them, enough of them to either back off or to support, we need to ban this, it will pass. It will pass. There's enough votes there and leverage there to make that pass. And that will open the doors to so many other issues, which the conservatives have been trying to get good, sound conservative policy in that pink building for so many years. Then, after the local elections, guess what? The speaker and the lieutenant governor are going to give some interim charges to their committees. They're going to go around the state for various issues, probably the big hot button issues. Boy, you want to practice testifying? How about an opportunity when I can't get to the Capitol? Well, you know what? They're coming to Fort Worth. Why don't you go testify there, because it's right down the street? How about that for some practice? So great opportunities, and then of course the general election. Look, politics never ends. They're never gonna, the American Marxists are never gonna leave you alone. So how about we just start pushing back on them every day as well?
Love that. I'm going to take a point of privilege to call a quick audible, because while everyone in here is special, I've spotted a close friend and colleague of mine, is Genevieve Collins, sitting in the audience.
Yay!
Would you please stand, Genevieve? Please, for a second.
Yay!
So Miss Genevieve is many things. Most importantly, she is an upgrade from the former bum of State Director at Americans for Prosperity.
Which was him.
Thank you for calling me out, Tamara. But, I wanted to point her out because it's a perfect way to segue about some of the partnerships and plugging in with different capabilities based off of all these individuals' comparative advantage, or individual organizations' comparative advantage. Because there's things out there that Heritage Action and Rebecca
Yes.
Warwick does that we just cannot do. And in fact, it would be ridiculous of us to try to replicate it. So rather, we partner with them, right? And likewise, there's things out there that TPPF can provide, and we have all of these giant policy nerds that spend all of their day investing their nose into books and reading analysis and data and whatnot. We have a lot of those solutions, and so if I would love to get y'all's thoughts on how else can we partner with organizations out there, or maybe even just how important it is to recognize, I don't have that, they do, I'm gonna support them, but together that's that mutual benefit. We're all gonna win over the goal line.
Well, the key to partnership is to actually want to be a good partner yourself, right? Paul and I, we get to have lunch with Miss Genevieve on Monday because we are already strategizing on how we stand together, what issues we want to tackle, and we're going to start working on those issues in 2022 so that when we say to make policy inevitable, it's because we're already aligning the groups, the grassroots, our policy, our points. We're going to be doing trainings all over the state. This is really, really important. We're going to be going to areas where people feel that, well, we're so small, or no, everybody forgets we're here. We're going to be going all over in order to get that army amassed. But the partnership is, you have to be confident in what you're doing, be humble enough to be inviting to the others that might know something more than you, and together you collaborate, because there's a secret. I work in the world of communications and public relations, and I tell my clients, I don't know everything, but I'm willing to look at new opportunities, explore new avenues. And with partnerships, like with Genevieve and AFP, Darren Gobb is the executive director for RestoreLiberty.org, and he's come from Montana to learn and to see what TPPF is doing. Why are these important? Because we don't know everything, and we don't know everybody, but we want to. We want to know as much as possible, and we want to connect with as many people as possible, because the partnerships then become inevitable, which then makes passing policy and putting it into legislation inevitable.
So Tamara and I had a meeting several weeks ago in Dallas with a man who's got a vision to make an impact in his community. We're not going to go into that yet. But one of the things he mentioned to us was the difficulty of partnerships. It was one of the first things he said, is like, I got this group, doesn't want to work with this group because they're upset with somebody, right? The dynamics. And it's like, we got to leave all that aside. You disagree with them on an issue which isn't even related to what you're trying to do, right? And that could be a valid principled disagreement, but we got to work together on the vast majority of the stuff we agree on and set that aside, because there is so much more leverage, and leverage is the right word, leverage that we have when we band together and we set aside all those other differences. You know, pull back the curtain a little bit. When we started Grassroots Gold, the first leaders we reached out to were folks who did not support the convention of states. We wanted to see if we could make that connection and that relationship work first, because that was important to us, because it's like, we need to leave that aside. Not that we don't continue to support it, because we do, but there's much more to do than just that.
It's that time where we get to hear from the really fun folks out in the audience. But before we do, I wanted to see if anyone picked up on how many times we've said in one way or the other, get to the Capitol and partner up. I think I counted about 17, which is what, 25 short of our quota that we wanted to get to. I know it kind of is an oversimplification, but you know, as we said at the outset of this panel here, if it wasn't for Jim and Robin Lennon that put that event on in the Capitol, who knows if and when we ever would have bumped into each other, and think of the partnership that wouldn't have happened, and all the great potential pieces of legislation that wouldn't have happened if not for that. It really can be just get up and go if you can. So with that, what questions are on everybody's mind? I think we got a couple questions around here. Yes, sir.
A couple of comments and a question, if that's okay.
Yes. Coming to you.
Yes, Mike. So the folks at home.
A couple of comments and a question. So I've testified at a hearing, and it is scary, but the representatives and the senators are very cordial and helpful and try to make you feel comfortable. So I think that's a huge plus. Would you make some comments about two things, if you don't mind? One is how you deal with staff and what part they play. And the other one is, I've been involved with Texas Policy Foundation for a number of years, and we have beat this school choice every year. It's like pounding a rock and it doesn't chip very much. Can y'all give a sense of what we need to do and who we need to go after in the upcoming legislature to try to get this thing done finally? Thank you.
You want to go first?
Sure. Great questions. And the staff question is a fantastic question, because, again, we talked about the people part of the map, mission, action, align, attitude, and people, right? The relationships. The staff, that's who you're mostly going to be seeing at the Capitol. What's great, in fact, we just had an instance out in the hallway where a young lady who worked with Representative Swanson is now chief of staff for Senator Hall, right? So they move around, and you get relationships built with some staffers. Now you get to know multiple offices, because every couple of years they're moving all over the place, and you're going to be talking to them most of the time when you call. By the way, being professional, you know what? The ultimate is you get the cell phone number of your legislator, right? Don't abuse that privilege, right? We always try to be professional. If I need to contact my legislator, I'm going to go through their office. Thank God in Texas we have enough staff. There's states I've worked in where they don't have anybody, right? The legislators are all on their own, and it's right there. They don't have an office. It's crazy. So they have people who will handle their schedules, and it just presents a more professional attitude when you're doing that. If it's something important, I will ding my senator right away, but we're not friends. We have a relationship. It's not a friendship thing. So great question on the staff, though. They are a gold mine of opportunities that just occur over and over again, year after year.
And I will add, sometimes the staff, they go to another office, and there were a couple of staff members, one in particular who ended up becoming a committee chair, if you will, clerk. And so we ran into him in the hall. What are you doing? Who are you with? And he told us, well, it just so happened that was the clerk of a committee that we needed to have access to. So we were able to check in and know exactly when things were happening ahead of anybody else. And that because we had developed a relationship over multiple years with him, and we would be able to call there. We would be able to ask him questions. He guided us. And here's the thing, staff want to help you. They need you. They need you to testify. They need your expertise. And so they're there actually as your best resource. And they want to genuinely help you. As far as school choice, that is a very interesting thing, because again, we had a conversation with the lieutenant governor. He said school choice has been for over 20 years, every year, somebody trying to get it done, $50 million plus by one individual that has been spent in Texas in the last 25 years now since that conversation. Think about that for a minute. That can all get solved if all of us as moms and dads and grandparents say what we've experienced with CRT and what's going on. Why haven't we left the Texas Association of School Boards? 27 other states have left that national organization. Where are we? But here's the thing. It doesn't matter where we were yesterday. Where are you at today? And what we do tomorrow is what matters. So you don't have to beat yourself up. You don't have to think, oh my goodness, I can't do this. Yes, you can. But until each of us decides as parents and grandparents to say, nope, no more, ends on my watch. You wanna know what? I'll tell you, I'll put a challenge out there publicly. If on the opening day of session, you get 100 people and you join us on opening day session next year and we have 5,000 parents at the Capitol to say our number one issue is this, do you know what happens? Every single legislator in that dome is gonna go, yes, I'm your biggest champion. And on day one, we could have 98 sponsors to that legislation and have the governor make that a priority. And you know what happens? That legislation is passing and we just own that then. We own education. We're not gonna leave it to the Marxists. That's ours. And we're Texans, we do hard things. Let's get it done.
Just one real quick before, I know we got other questions. 2022 is all about getting the momentum and making the issue, whatever it is, but school choice is a big one, making that the buzz, so that's all the legislators hear. They just hear it over and over and over again. And if you wanna fill the Capitol on the State of the State address, we've done that before. And that will move something from, I'll mention it, to, I'm gonna make that an emergency item.
Yes.
Real quick before I jump to you, Mr. Allen Parker, my friend, I guess the first two questions are from San Antonio folk. I appreciate that. So to your question, Mr. Gill, who we just met the other night, there was about 5,500 bills that were written just in the 87th legislature last year. And I say that number because those lawmakers cannot keep track of all of that legislation. When you have that interaction with a staffer, being that happy warrior, it really does add a little bit of kindness to that staffer and how they're going to present the bill and the notes that they have on that. So if you're able to do that, it really, really is an important touch. To the question on school choice, my own personal opinion, one of the challenges we've had with school choice over the last 30 plus years is that school choice is a bill. School choice is a piece of legislation. Parental empowerment, parental voice, that's a movement. And if you don't believe me, ask Governor Glenn Youngkin out of Virginia.
Yay!
I'm gonna follow up with that real quick, because there is no one more powerful. Sorry, dads, your stories are important. There is no one more powerful in the Capitol than a mom.
Yeah.
Mr. Allen.
It's a
Yes.
fact.
It's a follow-up and everything. And I'm Alan Parker, president of the Justice Foundation. We litigated for school choice in Texas. Thank you. It opened the door for charters, but it's up to the legislature to include child-centered funding for every child. But there is a new grassroots organization in Texas being formed, single issue on school choice, called libertyforthekids.com. Jess Fields is the field organizer and senior policy. He was earlier, but he had to leave. So remember that name, Liberty for the Kids. But we do want to work together with everyone. And because school choice, I'm going to have a question at the end. School choice in the right schools would help everybody's issues. If you're learning about the Constitution, the true history of America, proper math, I don't know, but you can learn how to vote and get active in civics. So we've got to do the education. I was there. What we've always lacked, first, your question on this. I think what we've always lacked is a true grassroots movement for school choice. And so it's time. How could you all, and we want to work with every group, how could you all help us work together? And I know Americans for Children, American Federation for Children is going to have some grassroots work there this June. So we all want to work together. How can you all help us work together and support the single issue, but the group that works with others, Liberty for the Children?
Boy,
Yeah.
we did not pay him to ask.
No, so it's a great question. First of all, you know, our background is working with a single issue group, and they have great leverage, right? When you have a single issue and singular focus, and then bringing other people in to help with that. And then again, constitutional carry was a great example last session, right? That group was singularly focused, and we could send people. So the first thing we're going to do with collaborating is we need to send them to Alan, right? Go to Liberty for the Kids, right? Because all your talking points and messaging points that they're pushing, they're going to lead the effort, and we love doing that stuff, right? We always said, go talk to Rachel, right? Go sign up there. You're interested in 2A, you want to do that. A little bit of a preview, we have a lot of pieces of a project in the bucket right now that are going to help with a lot of collaboration. I'll just kind of tease it there.
So we want to connect with you. The best, again, shameless plug, go to Grassroots Gold and just let us know that you asked this question, and then we'll reach out to you and start helping you. I think here's, in a nutshell, what we love is we learned so much about what it takes to pass legislation, to build coalitions, to partner. We don't have every answer, but our goal is to share our experience and educate as many grassroots leaders as possible so that you can own it and adapt it to your organization. And then what we can do is highlight when you're going to be at the Capitol. That group's going to be at the Capitol. You can add that to our calendar so that people, really, we want to be that centralized resource so that we can help you, train your people, bring people to the Capitol, walk them through the Capitol. It really is a goal, and it doesn't matter. There's going to be multiple issues, but the key to legislation, the key to parental empowerment, we've got to start focusing on that this year. So invite Texas public policy education people to speak at your groups. Invite us to come and speak to your group. That's actually what we have found has been the the real initial impetus for us developing great relationships with all these organizations. They asked us to come and speak. And then we do that, and that starts that relationship. And Texas Public Policy Foundation, they want to help you provide great policy. We want to help you by educating your folks on ideas on a map that will work for your organization. Does that make sense? We're all here together, and it's going to be a shared knowledge. And we likewise want to learn from you, being that expert in your initiative. And that's what makes it really fun.
It does make sense, and it is organic when it does happen, which is so special about it. And I would just add, go to Grassroots Goal, but also go to Convention of States. The ability for them to
Yes.
communicate to Texans all across the state with their data. Go to Heritage Action with Rebecca Warwick. Let me just take a step back. Erica and Al with Convention of States, two phenomenal folks.
Yes.
You got Rebecca Warwick with Heritage Action. You got Americans for Prosperity with data and capabilities to reach
Yes.
Texans all across the state. Make sure you're connecting with them because they all have different capabilities that allow us to bring this over the goal line. I know we have, we've been over on this room the whole time. I do
Okay.
kind of want to switch over here. Miss Gina in the back, please don't heckle me or throw tomatoes.
She's not like that. Gina's
I'm not.
awesome.
But I will do it if our, one thing that we really haven't touched is how is Grassroots going to support candidates or re-election of people in our great state that have our beliefs?
Who's the most important person in governance here?
We are.
We are. Here's some things that we learned. I don't care who the speaker is or the chair of the committee. You can move those people. So I understand the question. We want to get the best people in we can, but we need to be confident that our boldness can move the needle regardless of who ends up winning. After March 1st, I talked with someone earlier here a couple days ago, right? Can't wait to get to March 2nd when we're all playing on the same team, right? Get past the primary. So I understand the question. We're personally not endorsing any candidates through the primary, because, again, we want to collaborate with whoever's there. But immediately after that, and it doesn't matter if it's a Democrat or Republican in your district, they're your representative, right? You need to communicate with them and let them know what's going on and help them move the needle. Maybe it will smooth it over. Even if they're opposed to something, they're not going to push back so hard during the session, right? Does that help a little bit on that? You have anything to add?
That helps somewhat, but I'm thinking that the more of us that get together and know what we're standing up to and helping, not so much now, but after the primary, are like-minded elected officials, soon-to-be elected officials, if we can help them, but not endorse, but help them.
Oh, yes. So here's a perfect, in fact, we were talking with Genevieve about this a couple days ago. Following the primaries, South Texas is getting ready to turn red. You want to know opportunity to build partnerships and friendships and take Texas back truly? We need to be committing, and I'm working with multiple grassroots groups. Paul and I are, and I live in Collin County. And I'm working right now with about 30 different grassroots organizations in Collin County. And we want to plan a day. We're going to work with some groups down in South Texas who need help block walking for great candidates. So after the primaries, we're going to commit. We're going to head down and try to bring several hundred people down so that we can start forming relationships and helping build new coalitions that we've never been able to build before. But they're hungry for liberty in South Texas. So why wouldn't we from all over the state go down and support them? Again, wow, what a concept.
Hey, we got a question up here in front, and I'm going to come over to you, sir, in the left, my left.
I just wanted to make more of a comment from the other side of this. I'm an elected official, and what I can honestly say is they are 100% accurate when they talk about going in person and testifying. There have been many times that, well, let me back up just a minute. The lobbyists are always speaking in their ears, trust me, always.
Right.
If you want that to be the only voice that they hear, then you're gonna get stuck with what you get. You need to make your voice heard. And I will tell you, when you show up as a person, that's somebody that's not being paid. Your voice means a heck of a lot more than that lobbyist sitting out there, because the lobbyist is getting paid for that job. You go down and testify. I can tell you there have been times that I've been on the fence, or I've been thinking, well, gee, which way am I gonna go on this? Or maybe I even thought differently. But it was individual citizens that aren't good at public speaking, and they may stutter, and they may get nervous. Great, because that tells me it's not a professional. And I will put value in that individual. And that individual is what swings the vote. I appreciate the question back here, but trust me, what they're proposing swings the vote. It swings that vote. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy.
So thank you for that shameless plug, Jimmy. And what Jimmy really touched on was grassroots and elected, everybody, people sniff out authenticity, which is what Jimmy was touching on. That's authentic testimony. That carries great weight and great power.
Yep.
Are you guys able to show the video of the Texas Stampede? I don't know if I'm, probably not, you're not to that.
No.
Show video. I don't know how to guys.
You have to.
I wish.
You have to start with Alexa. Show video.
Oh, right.
I had,
We're talking about grassroots. I just 2 minutes on grassroots power and the Texas Stampede and what it was, and try to paint a picture for everybody, because that was pretty powerful, even if you can't see the video right now.
Can I explain through that? Because
Yes.
I first of all,
60 seconds.
Okay, I'll try and do it real quick. First of all, I wasn't there for that because I believed our legislation was inevitable, and I scheduled my vacation to actually be at Disney World when our signature legislation was passing. But I saw the video live, and then I said, we got to grab that from our videographer. And the first place we showed it was Fredericksburg Tea Party, and it was really about a week after. And I told Tamara, I was like, I don't know how this is going to fly, because this is kind of weird. But we'll do it. It was 2.5 minutes long, and we showed it, and everybody flipped out. And I've shown it in multiple states now to legislators, because they say and lobbyists, they say they've never seen anything like that before. Basically, the legislatures in the House rushing the podium to say, I'm going to sponsor, right then and there, because the grassroots had lined that gallery from 82 different House districts. And they said, Speaker Strauss, this time you're moving it, regardless of how much you don't like it. That moves legislation.
I will also add one last thing to that. 2017, the governor's State of the State address, we brought 600 plus grassroots. We not only filled the gallery to capacity with every seat filled with our grassroots, but there was a line of another couple hundred people standing outside, waiting to get in there. And what happened was, when we did not know that the governor announced our legislation being an emergency item. And when he did that, the whole entire gallery in the House erupted. And then what happened next is every single legislator taking their cell phones and taking pictures of the grassroots and cheering them and clapping for all these people that got up and literally were in line at, 5:30, 6 a.m. to get into the Capitol. And so these are extraordinary things that when you decide to show up, and we chose, there were certain times when we really needed the big mass of people, because we knew that mass made an impact, and it made an impact on the legislators. And when you want to pass legislation, it is about impact. It is about influence, and it is about using that opportunity to really put that mark down to make your legislation inevitable.
I don't know if I want to follow that. I have 2 footnotes I would like to add. Number 1 is one of the greatest resources I've found when I'm talking to my legislators, coming up with testimony, looking for both the pros and the cons on the issues, is the Legislator's Guide to the Issues that can be found on Texas Public Policy Foundation's website. I used it when it was the Legislator's Guide, and I used to tear out my pages and mark them and whatever. It's a great resource. Number 2, I just want to say, in 13 years of starting this from the Jim and I coming to the Capitol when a lot of the Tea Parties didn't. If we want to work together, we have to organize around issues. And all of us who support an issue can work together and be happy warriors. And then we don't worry about those who disagree. They can organize and they can also work for their side of the issue. And then when the next issue comes up, we realign and all the people who support the issue can help each other support their side. That's the only way this will work, or as we've seen sometimes in the grassroots in Texas, it will divide us. And the happy warrior and the prayer, I believe, is foundational. Yep. And these people represent all of that, and I'm very happy to have them here to lead us.
Thank you.
Michelle, right behind you.
Thank you. I just want to amplify on your comment about staffers. I spend a lot of time at the Capitol, meet the staffers. I've seen people come in and knock off the papers on their desk, kick over their trash cans, and support what I'm doing. When you meet with those staffers, I try to understand what some of the key issues for the representatives and senators are, discuss with them, and then report back in a couple weeks what I have found out visiting with my friends and other constituents. That really endears you to them. Number two, it seems like a lot of your efforts are going to be based on using social media to amplify your positions. And Senator Hughes, Representative Kane passed a bill where if your social media items are taken down, deleted, i.e. President Trump, you can now sue those companies. And if you can't afford to do it, the Attorney General will do it on your behalf in Texas. So I know that Senator Hughes would like to have the first volunteer to do that, and if you'll let him know if that's happened to you, I'd be stunned if you haven't had some of your social media posts taken down.
Oh,
Thank you for that plug. Yeah.
They've attempted to cancel us, but you can only be canceled if you let them. We're not going to be canceled. And I think, again, you go back to your map, right? What's your mission? What's your attitude? And I want to add something. You brought up a really great point, sir. And that is that we have to be able to be the difference makers. And when I say that, we've actually witnessed what you just mentioned, people kicking over trash cans, using profanity, throwing things, screaming literally at staffers. And it is shocking because our founders intended this nation to be built on a framework that is civil discourse and civil dialogue. And so to be able to be humble enough to come together and say, I have a point, I want to hear what your point is, what is it going to take for you to sign on as a sponsor? Listen to that, communicate, because sometimes some sponsors have some really good reasons why they need your support in order to sponsor legislation. And so we have to be able to come together. Now, there are moments where you need to show up at the Capitol with pitchforks. But if you show up on day one and you've got a pitchfork and you just keep showing up angry, you know what happens? You become ineffective and a joke, and no one listens to you. Because I gotta be honest, if I'm gonna be volunteering and showing up, do you wanna work with a bunch of negative, angry people? I mean, isn't that the other side? They're the negative, angry people. I wanna show up where we are working together and having fun. As we said, Brandon is everywhere. It's time to galvanize and under an umbrella of positivity, of optimism. For goodness sakes, we live in the most extraordinary nation in the history of this earth. It is up to us. There is no one coming to save us. It's us. Holy cow. Every single one of us watching at home and here in this room at this conference, guess what? The Lord thinks so highly of you that you were born for this time. He thinks you are the watchmen and the watchwomen on the wall for liberty right now. So this is our moment. We have two choices. Are we going to let liberty's light go out on our watch? Or are we going to say, heck no, we're Texans, been there with the Alamo, and we're not going to let an Alamo happen in our nation? No way. We have to show the rest of this country who's going to stand up for liberty. We're not going to be pushed around. And I promise you, we're going to watch giants fall. And then we're going to not just take ground in Texas and our states by our example. But those people in Ireland and the UK and the EU and Taiwan, don't be fooled. There are billions of people watching to see what America's next steps are. And it isn't about what happens in DC. It is about, they're watching Texas. They're watching you and you and you. What are we going to do? So it's time to put your boots on and get that hat ready to roll, because we have a lot of work to do, and doggone it, we can do it, and then set the world on fire for freedom.
We got time for about 2 more questions. Good.
And I'm not going to go nearly as long as Tam on this. Your example was a great example of what an insurgent looks like, right? And coming in, and then Tam mentioned, we really need to practice listening, right? What are there might be valid reasons for a legislator giving opposition. And I won't give the legislator's name. We've tried really hard to get sponsors in the Senate. There were several who could not commit to being public sponsors because of other very heavy legislation they were carrying, and they did not need to take more flack from sponsoring ours. And that's a little difficult when your whip count is kind of screwy, because you can't count on a vote until you actually see it. But listen to a legislator and realize, okay, I understand why you can't commit on this right now. So great feedback. As far as communication, all right, and platforms, again, Grassroots and American people, the American spirit, are extremely creative. If we have to go to tin cans and string, we will do it.
But I'm going to give you a little secret. It's not out yet, but we're working on something that is going to be a game changer for grassroots groups.
Not cancelable.
And not cancelable. So if you want to know when that's happening, and it will be happening in February, as we're already in beta testing of our platform, you're going to want to sign up. No, it's way better. Yeah, it's going to be the proprietary activist app that is going to be the go-to. It is not hosted on Amazon Web. Yes, ma'am.
In the back.
Okay.
And then you.
Good afternoon. My name is Amoye. Okay, I remember Brooke Rollins said that she had advice from a Fox News either commentator or anchor about who to reach out to, and they said basically every other demographic except white, in not so many other words. And so I was wondering, is there any hesitation or issues or problems when it comes to reaching out to other demographics, or even on the left side of the aisle when it comes to specific issues? I was thinking when it comes to school choice, I was like, I'm pretty sure there are other people that are maybe left leaning, but also would like school choice because they are in the system and they see the issues. And so is there any hesitation, not just school choice, but other issues? Is there any hesitation or problem when it comes to reaching other or partnering with other people that may not align with all these other stuff, but at least with that one thing they're good with?
Yes. Why not? Right? I think we have gotten so polarized and so politicized that, if you're this skin color or you come from that background, you're not supposed to be over there. But again, grassroots gold. You're gold. You know your community better than I would know your community. But I want to learn from you. I want to know, how can I help you elevate your voice and be a champion? How can I serve you? How can we work together? There's nowhere that I would go anywhere and have any opportunity to talk with people of all walks of life, of all backgrounds, in any place, anytime, anywhere. Because again, there are moms and dads, I will say, through this whole process of 8 years, we actually have been to Democrat conventions, Republican conventions. We tried to go to the Libertarian convention, but if I recall, we couldn't get anybody to return our call. We wanted to give them money. We couldn't even get there. But we have. Here's the one thing we learned at the Democrat convention. You ready? We started listening to them, what their concerns. We started asking them what were they concerned about, and an aha moment happened. Guess what, folks? The Democrats want good schools. They want jobs that are high paying. They want safe communities. They actually want to keep more money. The real normal citizen Democrat, they want more money in their pocket. Are these not like-minded issues that we can agree upon and come together? Absolutely, and we should be. And so what we have to get over is if we want to save this country, if we want to make Texas continue to work for everyone, we have to get over our fear and become fearless. We have to reach out, and we have to work with everybody that we can find who is like-minded and work together. And you know what's going to happen? Guess what's going to happen? Suddenly, everybody who's watching CNN over on this side and Fox on this side, they turn that off and come together and start working together. Pretty soon, we all align against that swamp in DC and say, we're on to you. You guys are out. Because the lies that you're peddling, they're not true. And we know that because we're standing together in our communities to solve real problems. And we're smarter than you, so you're done. And we're gonna exert our 10th Amendment resourcefulness and our commitment that is guaranteed by the Constitution for us to be sovereign over DC. So you know what? You've now become irrelevant. I say let's make DC relevant.
So you again touched upon something, Dr. Johnson mentioned it earlier about we're the human race, right? We're Americans. Yes. This is not about Democrat, Republican on all issues. And thankfully, we've seen experience in the last couple sessions. In the last session, crossing the aisle on issues. We had great Democrat champions for constitutional carry. Yes. When the issues got personal, right, in their communities, and they hear from their constituents, the polling tells them it's already there, right? School choice is a big one. Corey DeAngelis shared those poll numbers. People want that. They just need to hear from their constituents as well, but we can have those conversations because the support is there for that.
Thank you, yes. Partner with anyone to do good and no one to do harm, Frederick Douglass. We all subscribe to that. Thank you so much for asking that question. We are literally at that time, but what I want to do is make sure we'll stand back a little bit afterwards, and if y'all still have questions, we'll make sure we get you information. But what I want to do is make sure that all the folks, before they have to leave this room, get to hear y'all's closing line of how you want to send these folks back out into the hallways, back out into Austin, back out in the rest of the state of Texas with one piece of major information.
One piece. First of all, you're already plugged in somewhere locally, stay plugged in. I know this isn't one piece. We encourage you to sign up at Grassroots Gold. We do have a lot of irons in the fire that are going to be ready to be out very shortly in a few weeks, which we think will be encouraging to everybody. But always stay local, stay engaged in the campaigns that are coming up right now. Keep your legislators or potential legislators on their toes. Challenge them, ask them questions.
I would just say thank you, because those of you that showed up here today means you're interested in being engaged and being connected. And so we thank you that that you've shown up to listen. And we hope that we can work with each one of you moving forward, and whatever, invite us to come speak. Let's go, because there is no more time to waste. We love you guys. We appreciate everything you're doing.
How about one more round of applause for our all-star panelists? Thank you.